the bulk of our training takes place. And about 5 years ago, I joined a group called Rogue Running. They're a great group. My coach, Chris McClung, he actually has a great running podcast. If you guys listen to podcasts, just gives a lot of great coaching advice. But that group is actually we're celebrating our 20th anniversary here in a couple of weeks. Um, so I've been running with that group for a little while, and about a little more than a year ago, I took over as a coach for one of the groups as well. So I've been running for a while, and then I've been coaching adult runners on Tuesday nights. If you're ever in Austin, come on down for a run on a Tuesday night for about a year and a few months.
All right, cool. I'm gonna start off with some questions here. Is that cool, Joe?
Yeah, whatever. I've got some notes too. Whatever you got, throw it my way.
What's your favorite marathon been?
Oh boy. Um, oh, I mean yeah. I'd say I've got two. So one is last year I ran the Chicago Marathon for the second time. It was much better than my first time. It was a personal best for me. So it was a great race overall. But also it was just like a really cool time to be running that same day, just a few hours or like an hour after I finished. Calvin Kiptum had broken the world record on that course, which was really incredible because they were sort of announcing it as we were running
Oh, that's awesome.
and finishing up, which was really neat. So it was like as you're out there running, you hear people at the aid stations and stuff telling everybody like, "Hey, they broke the world record today," which was really cool. Also, I'm from Chicago, so it's kind of my hometown race, if you will. So I loved it. Love that. Love running through that city. It's incredible. The other one that I would cite is one they actually had to cancel this year, I think, because of some some weird road issues. Uh, in that the road like literally fell apart. The Big Sur Marathon, which happens out on the West Coast there. You run up the highway that follows the ocean. So you're looking out at the ocean the entire time you're running up this highway that they've closed for the day. Um, which was just incredible. And I ran that with my youngest brother. We did that together. It was his personal best at the time as well. So that was a really cool moment for us.
Very cool. Very cool. Other questions? Come on, crew.
Do I ask the question now?
Yeah, go ahead, Kenneth.
How do you deal with gastrointestinal issues while running, or like how do you prevent them?
Gastrointestinal issues. Oh man, yeah. That's it.
He's been dealing with them all week, Joe. So it's.
Hey, look, it happens. Yeah. That's a great question. Nutrition is super challenge or can be super challenging. And look, I'm never gonna see you guys again, maybe. So I'm not super embarrassed to admit that. One year I ran the Austin Marathon. I think it was like my fifth time running the Austin Marathon, and I didn't do the right thing the night before. I ate the wrong things apparently, and it was a really tough race for me. That was probably my worst race ever. It was horrible. So I can resonate with you, but what I do is I do a couple things. So number one, when I'm like I try to stick to a routine with my meals. And what I mean by that is like on Saturday mornings I go out for my long run for the week. And that means on Friday night I eat the same thing every Friday night, no matter what. Or I eat something that I know my body can typically tolerate without much issue, right? So, um, I'm not going out to a new restaurant that I've never been before and having some new food that I've never had before on the night before a big long run or like a big race, right? The other thing I try to do is have stuff that's very like basic, right? So if I'm having a meal, it's like some kind of carb, some kind of protein, and then probably a vegetable or something that has a little bit of fat in it. But I'm not going crazy with like, oh, let's get some milk and mayonnaise and all. No, It's rice and or pasta and then a protein that's like pretty basically seasoned, nothing crazy. Um, and that's been really helpful for me. And if I get really worried, I'll just try to eat plain stuff, right? I'll go for the Chicago Marathon, for example. I went to Trader Joe's and I just bought a little package of like pretzel rolls, very high in carbs, but very plain, right? So it's not glamorous, it's not delicious necessarily, but it keeps my stomach settled. Um, and then with race nutrition or nutrition like while you're running, if you're, running long distances, you probably want to get some fuel in your body while you're going. Um, in my experience, that takes experimentation. So try different things while you're running, um, and see what works for you. And if something upsets your stomach, don't use that product again. Or be careful about what how much of something maybe you're taking in, right? So like with gels and uh, electrolyte drinks and stuff, right? I try to use that stuff um, in practice, like during training runs and things like that. So I know that when I get to my race day, that stuff is not going to upset my stomach.
So you mentioned
Don't,
hydration and electrolyte drinks, and I know Joe, we've had some friendly banter back and forth on the company,
yes.
much to everybody else's chagrin. Can you talk to these guys about kind of your hydration routine?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, which is super important. I mean, it's important across the board, I think, it's in summer, especially no matter where you are, but here in Austin, right? It's typically getting up to like 90 something, sometimes 100. Last summer we had like 100 plus days over 100 degrees all in a row. I mean, it gets super hot here, so you just can't run full full strength without doing some kind of hydration stuff. And so um you all will learn more about this as you learn more about chemistry and biology and all that stuff, but just drinking water alone is not enough to quote unquote hydrate you. Your body, your cells, they actually need salt and some other things we call electrolytes that are not salt. Those things need to be present in your body for your body to absorb the water and keep the water inside your cells to stay hydrated. Um, if you don't have enough salt and other things in your system, the water is going to go in and it's going to come right out and it's going to be clear and you're going to know by looking at, what's coming out of you if you're hydrated or not, right? Um, and so what I like to do is I've done some basic testing on some of my long runs or longer runs to kind of try and figure out how much sweat am I losing or how much how hard is my body working? And what that's enabled me to do is kind of figure out like, well, I sweat this much and therefore I need to drink this much back in water and electrolytes throughout the day. So I keep a water bottle by me at all times. It's 32 ounces, and it's either got water or electrolyte drink in it. And I try to do at least one bottle of water and one bottle of electrolytes a day in order to keep my body in balance, right? So if you go out for a run and you're feeling real low and sort of tired or whatever, or you're coming back and you're getting headaches, things like that, that's usually a sign that you're not getting enough electrolytes and your body isn't holding on to enough water to keep you fully hydrated. So, but yeah, and in terms of product, yeah, I found a few that work well for me, and I know that on average, people lose around like 500 to 600 milligrams of sodium a day. So I use a pretty high sodium thing to get me back so I don't get too in the it's very hard to get your body out of a deficit. So if you get dehydrated, it can be really hard to pull yourself out. So you got to stay ahead of it.
Awesome. Other questions? Come on, Ken hit us with a zinger. Let's get the next one. Go ahead, Nathan.
What's your routine after a hard workout or race?
Oh yeah, this is a great one. Um, Usually not good enough, I'll tell you that. On a good day, on an optimal day, I'm getting back and I do work out every Wednesday morning. I meet up with my group downtown. We do a hard workout. This week we did it's a down week this week, so we had a little bit less intensity, but we did 800s on the track, working down from half marathon pace all the way to 5K. So pretty fast at the end, really humid and warm. It was rough out there. So what I normally do is go to the gym and do some weight work after my Wednesday morning run. This week, my body was telling me, that's not a good idea. You're hurting. So instead, come home and do the next thing. Protein immediately. I do a little protein shake. You can do chocolate milk. That's a good one. But your body, after a hard workout, you want to kickstart the recovery process as quickly as possible. And so getting some protein in, or even better would be, sort of a balanced meal, something with some carbs, some protein, some fats, because all those things are needed for your body to start to like put itself back together again, right? So I'll do protein or a meal on my way home or right when I get home. And then I'll typically try to hop on the foam roller in the like sometime shortly after the workout, and then again in the evening or as needed throughout the day to try and like keep things sort of like loose and moving. And if I can, this is hard for you all, probably just as it's hard for me, because you all are in school, I'm at work, but sleep is your number one recovery tool. So on days where I have a hard workout, if I can squeeze in a little nap, that's huge. But if I can't squeeze in a nap, I try to go to bed at a really good time so I know I'm going to get a full 8 hours of sleep, because I know on Wednesdays, if I don't get my full sleep to kind of fully recover, that's going to push into the next couple of days, and that's going to really slow me down on some, like my long run on Saturday, for example, if I'm not fully recovered by then, which, that can be a problem. And then the last thing I guess I do, it is not until the following day, but after a big workout or a long run, so usually on Thursday mornings and Sunday mornings, I go out and I do a recovery run. And those runs are super easy, super slow. So, and it like as slow as my body needs me to go that day, because there really is no, there's no such thing as going too slow. And it just means that your body's working in the appropriate aerobic zone to get the body moving, and movement equals blood flow, and blood flow equals healing. So it's kind of the last piece of the puzzle. You get the protein to kickstart the body building back the muscles. You get the rest for your body to do more with the nutrients that it's gotten from the day. And then you do the recovery run at a slow pace for your body to start the blood back moving the day after. And that blood flow promotes healing within the body.
Who's next? Jack?
I guess I have one question, like, can you talk about how like lifting weights, like how that helps you? Like you said you lift after some of your workouts, so can you just kind of like go into deeper detail on that, like how that helps you?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's especially important for me because I'm old. And so when you're old, um, not only do I want to get stronger, just period, but like after a certain point in time, we've got a lot of research out there that shows you just naturally lose muscle mass. Your muscles get smaller after a certain point in life. So to counteract my muscles starting to deteriorate, you know, you start lifting weights. I mean, ideally you're doing it before it gets to be too late, but yeah, but for me, I got kind of serious about it for both those reasons, right? So, um, yeah, I mean, this is a great one in the sense that I'm still sort of like learning what this means for me. I've been doing more serious about lifting or doing like body weight movement. I got serious about that last in 2023, kind of in the spring. I was doing a speed block, so I was working on faster paces and faster races, which I don't. You guys are probably super fast and you're doing shorter, faster stuff most of the time, and I'm envious of that because I like the slow, long stuff. So whenever I do the faster stuff, my body is like, this is horrible. And last spring, I was having some issues with like my Achilles tendon, my right leg. I was having just some weird pains in my knee every once in a while. So I ended up going to a physical therapist and was doing some like body weight stretching, like movements and basic weight stuff to try and basically make certain parts of my body more resilient or stronger so that I'm not injuring myself. Um, and so that's kind of like that was step number one. I do the weights, basic body movements like with bands and push-ups and just basic stuff that you can do kind of in your house to try and like strengthen things like my Achilles tendon, which was not injured at the time, but it was hurting in a way that they were like, yeah, if you don't get it stronger, you're probably going to run into some problems. Um, and then that escalated to I basically saying I'm getting older also. So now it's time to start really lifting. So I started going to the gym more and um building, doing things like squats and like basically trying to do free weights, squats, like push pull stuff um to replicate some of the motions that you do in your running form, right? So a lot of the things I do are meant to strengthen areas or do things that my body does when I'm running. So like I'm pushing off with my calf muscle. So I've got to do something to strengthen my calf muscles. We're often balancing on one foot, right? So working on ankle strength so that my feet, my ankles keep my body level, right? So I've started doing that, and I'll do that graduated pretty recently to like I actually started going to a coach because I wanted to do what I did with my running, which is when I joined Rogue, I learned similar to what you all probably get on this team, right? I learned how to take like, oh, I'm just like, sort of out here running and doing on my own, to having a structure, a program to follow, a progression, right? Start here and build towards this. And I know how to do that now with my running. I know how to start with low mileage and work my way up to, in a couple weeks here, I'm going to start doing 20-mile runs on the weekends. I know how to do that. My body's ready for it because I've built up over time. I haven't done that with weights, so I've got a coach now to help me sort of start low, start small, start where I'm at, and then build me up. And so I've been to a few sessions with them. So now I'm doing like, I went from squatting with like nothing to squatting with a dumbbell to squatting with a big, the barbell and everything and weights, and basically working up to lifting heavy weights as opposed to just doing it, with my body weight. And all that progression helps me feel stronger, right? I get sore after a good weight session, but I don't feel some of the pains that I used to have. And I feel like once it takes a long time for weight training to like really sink in. It can take like 6 to 9 months or something like that for your body to really adapt all of that training. So my hope is that by the time I run my marathon towards the end of October, I'll have been doing weights for, about 9 months or more. And come race day, I'll be able to feel the difference of, oh yeah, like I can go further, faster, further, longer, because my muscles no longer get tired at the same rate that they were getting tired before, because of the progression and the steady build that I've been doing to make them stronger. I hope that helps. I don't know. The weights are new for me. But it's good. It's a good healthy mix of like, you're doing a lot of aerobic work and then take some time to go do the strength work to build the muscles that are doing all the aerobic work.
So, Joe, you've hit on some injury prevention, in the last couple of questions. What about when you do encounter, as every runner has, an injury, maybe a nagging
Yep.
injury? What's your process for getting through that and getting back on the road to run?
Yeah, this is critical. So I think the number one thing is you got to listen to your body. You have to. And you all are young, so you've got plenty of time to do this, but you're starting early, which is great. And what I and basically over time you will develop an intuition around this, or you should be thinking about developing an intuition around this, right? In other words, if you, by listening to your body like that, what does that mean? And it can mean a lot of things, I suppose, but what I mean by it is like when I have something that's bothering me and I step out to go run, um, I've developed some thinking around how that feels, uh, and I react based on that, right? So I do try to be consistent. So when I'm feeling some kind of pain or whatever, I will check in with myself. If I'm sort of first diagnosing like what might be going on, I'll go out and, I'll start running. And if whatever it is sort of goes away pretty quickly, then I'll probably, I'll keep going and I'll chalk it up to, this is probably just, something is, I didn't roll out enough. I didn't stretch, whatever I didn't do. I went too fast the day before. I need whatever. I'll sort of start there. But so I basically developed a little bit of a protocol, and my intuition is now a couple of things. Like one, what I just said, right? If it hurts real bad out of the gate, I'm just gonna stop. I'll go back, I'll rest up a little bit more and maybe try again later or try again the next day. Like you're not gonna it's not the end of the world if you miss a day or two of your training cycle. The other, and to make that more concrete, on a scale of like 1 to 10, if the pain is more than like a 3 to 5, that's when I'm stopping. I'm not gonna do this today. And then the other thing I try to do is parlay that into kind of like the next day. So if I have a little bit of a pain, say a 1 to 3, so pretty mild, but I can feel it. Then what I'll do is I'll see if it feels worse the next day after I run on it. And if it feels worse, then I stop. And then I reassess. If it feels about the same or better, then it's possible that whatever it is actually getting healed by what I mentioned earlier, which is like getting some of that movement going and the blood flow, whatever it is sort of getting healed by that. And that's a good sign, right? So it's like, okay, I can keep running on that because it doesn't feel worse than it did the day before. And then the other things I do are, if I do have to stop, I'll do things like ice, I'll rest, make sure I'm getting the right nutrition, hydration, all the things that we've kind of talked about already, and sleep is huge. So like I said, that's your number one recovery tool. So all those things, like I'm being way more intentional, way more purposeful about doing those recovery things. Um, if I've gotten to a point where something is hurting to the point that I need to stop. The other thing I do is I'm not afraid to call up my PT or my doctor if it's that bad and say like, hey, or if it's that consistent. So like if it's sort of even low level, but it's been low level for several weeks, I'm getting in to see somebody because if you let it go on, it can turn into something way worse, right? So and that's probably the worst thing you can do is just sort of like push through it. And I know there's a lot of temptation to do that. I've got a competition coming up, or man, I really want to like get a personal best on this thing or whatever. There's a lot of temptation to go out and just go into beast mode and do it all and and sacrifice your body to do it. But what might happen if you do that is you'll, do something really damaging to your body. So you got to be very, very careful. So it's kind of start building that intuition, thinking about like something is hurting, something is not right. So, develop some parameters around what that feels like. And every time it happens, uh, think about it, make some mental notes about it so that as these things happen, and they will, it's not an if, it's a when. By the time you get older and further along in your running career, you have a bank now of just, I remember that time I had this thing back 2 years ago, and you can sort of think back on what that felt like, and now you have a frame of reference and you're continuing to build that intuition so that eventually you get really good at being able to kind of like assess like what do I need to do to prevent. And yeah, don't be afraid to go see a doctor or take a day off.
It's good stuff. Well, Joe, I want to be respectful of your time. You got time for one more question, maybe?
Yeah, definitely.
Who's got it? Morgan, you got one?
I don't.
Ben?
Sure.
Yeah, Ben.
So, with your job and running marathons and everything, how do you achieve that running and personal life and work balance?
Woo. Man.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah. Well, big kudos to my wife. She having a partner, in my case is very, very helpful and kind of like a key ingredient. But yeah, it's tough, right? Because depending on your job, right, some people travel like crazy. Some people are always on the road, whatever. That would be pretty tough for me personally. But what I've done is I basically consistency is king. And what I mean by that is like the most important thing is like setting and maintaining a routine. And if running and it could be anything else, right? It could be weightlifting, it could be whatever your hobby is, it would work the same way. But if running is a priority, which it is for me, then that thing after family and a few other things, right, is the thing that gets my time and attention. Or the first thing. And then after that might come other things, other hobbies, other interests, whatever, other activities. So that's kind of number one. And then related to that, so you build out a nice routine, build it around your job. And again, like if job and family are like the highest things for you on the list of things to do, and then running is number three, then that means like I'm fitting in those runs wherever I can and adapting my schedule to accommodate or adapting them to fit my schedule. So for some people that might be like, running at weird times of the day, or squeezing, or like for me, in order to get downtown and to get to some of the things that I've committed to with running, I have to wake up at like 4 a.m. But that's a sacrifice that I've decided in my head is acceptable in order to run and to get. And I also note that to get the goals that I want, I've got to do that. It's just there's no way around it. And so that's kind of like the frame, right? Is like I want to be, and I know that consistency is important, meaning like above all else, I need to get out and do it. So if I don't make the run downtown because I slept in or something, I'm still going to go out and get in at least a few miles on that day and keep all my days in my routine for the week. So if I normally I do run 6 days a week with one off day on Friday. And so if I am normally running 10 to 12 miles on Monday for my medium long run, but I sleep in, that's okay. I'm going to make sure I get my, 4 miles in, something, because something is better than nothing to maintain my routine. Because if my routine starts to break down with respect to my running, or I let my job or something like, you know, I have an extra responsibility or travel one week, I'll keep that same mentality and I'll say, hey, like I might not be able to do my normal thing, but I'm going to do something because it's important for me to keep my routine because this is important. My job is more important. Family is more important. So sometimes you have to make the sacrifice, but I start from a place of I'm going to get something rather than nothing. And then in some cases, you just have to make the full sacrifice and say, you know what, this is a very important thing. I've gotta, not run today. And then the other thing is just trying to then squeeze in all the stuff that you all asked about in like the recovery question, for example, or the nutrition stuff, right? I've got to fit all that in too. And so that means like getting creative and clever about and strategic about hey, in between meetings, maybe I'll go hop on the foam roller because that's when I can get it in. Or maybe I have to split I got to do my run in the morning and my weights in the afternoon. Or maybe I have to flip those one week because that's the only way it's going to work. So knowing kind of all the different little pieces is really important to be able to know how to fit them in and move them around. But because I've prioritized my big goals around running, and I know that consistency is the most important thing to achieve those big goals, that's where I start. And from there, I can move the pieces around as I need to, within reason. and that's worked for me pretty well. And then, like I said, having people in your life that will support what you want. Like my family is very invested in me hitting my big goals. They know that this is really important to me. And so they help me stay consistent and be able to move my schedule around. And basically be able to be the best possible version of myself as a runner that I can be, because they know that, like, we've had the conversations, we've talked about how, like, hey, like, I want to do all these family things, of course, but just so you know, like, this is really important to me because it keeps me healthy and all the, all the great things that running does. So having people around you, whether it's your friends, your family, distant relatives, whoever it is, right? You want to surround yourself with people who are going to support your goals. And doing that can also be a really big help in making sure that you can meet those goals and do the things that you need to do that, because they can kind of help you, like, make some of those sacrifices, or help you make some decisions to keep you in the game, as opposed to, like, maybe having that friend who encourages you to, like, stay out too late on a Friday night when you got a big meet the next morning or something, right? You want to maintain those friends that are going to be like, hey, like, you got a big meet tomorrow, you should go home. That's a great question, though.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Joe, any last advice from you for a group of young runners who want to be their best?
Oh man, yeah. I mean, we hit on a lot of it, but I would just summarize and say, like, I think there's a couple things that are just really important, right? Especially if you are at a point where you feel like, I want to pursue running beyond, high school, maybe, and keep racing. And it's things like, if you don't already know, think about your why. Why do you do it? Why do you go out? Why do you run? A lot of people, when you tell them that you're a runner of any distance, they'll look at you and they'll be like, why do you do that? That's crazy. That hurts. Um, go to any race, right? And you'll see people out there with the signs basically saying, somehow this is supposed to cheer us on, but they'll be out there with the sign like, you chose to do this. Which is, sort of annoying. When you see them and it's like mile 20 of a marathon, but it's true. And so, like, that's a really important thing to have in your back pocket when things get really hard in a race, is, why are you doing this? Why did you choose this? Because you did choose it. Or, the world, well, form second fastest person in the world, I guess now, but Kipchoge, the famous marathoner, Olympian, et cetera, et cetera. One of the things he says all the time is, like, we get to do, it's not like I'm out here and it is what it is. It's like, no, you get to do this. You've trained, you get to go do this today. And so having that why and understanding, like, what you're out there for is really, really important. And then I would just also encourage you to try to take a long-term view of things, right? It's very easy to look at, like, I've got a race in 2 weeks, and then that's all you think about. But if you are serious about running, or you enjoy it, or you're really passionate about your why, and you want to keep going beyond your high school years, it's really important to think, like, long term, right? So especially if you've got some big goals and you don't hit those goals, maybe this year or next year, maybe you make it all the way through high school and, like, you don't quite hit whatever time you want in a distance or something like that. Running is something that you can do for a very long time. You can develop your aerobic system for like 20 plus years. So, like, I came to running in my early 30s. And so I've still got probably 10 years of getting faster ahead of me, even though I'm quite old. So old in quotes, I guess. But so I would just encourage you that like you may have periods of time where you go after something and you don't get it, you don't get it, you don't get it. It might be, because the weather's bad, you got an injury. There's a lot of things we can't control when we run. So focus on the things you can control. And one of those things is thinking not just about the race you have in 2 weeks, but like the runs, the goals that you want to achieve 5 years from now, 10 years from now. What do you want to be doing with respect to your fitness and running? And that's been really helpful for me because you know what? You go out and you don't always hit your goals. In fact, most of the time you don't. So like not every race is going to be a personal best. So I would say make sure you have a good why and then yeah, take that long-term view, that long-term approach and try to break things up and take away the lessons that you can when you don't hit your goals and then think about how you're going to do that over the next 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, right? You guys have um lots of time to get faster. So that's it.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, what do you think? Yeah, a lot of head nods.
Sweet. That's great.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Hey, no problem, y'all. Thanks for having me. Enjoy the rest when do you all leave?
We're coming back on Sunday, so we got a couple days left.
Okay, yeah, you got some more. And y'all are at altitude
Yeah,
out there?
we're in Snowshoe, West Virginia. It gets up to about 5,000 feet here.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
Well, this is yeah, have fun because what an incredible experience that sounds like. Yeah, have a great time and good luck with the rest of your training and with the upcoming season.
All right. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate
Thank
it,
you.
man.
Thank you.
See y'all.
That's my dude.